Checking in this morning with our friend and confidant, Greg Kneubuhler. He's kind of like a father confessor, We bring him our problems with farming and our crops. And last time we talked, Greg, was about the first part of April. It was a little soggy at that point, but what came next for the entire month of April was like the wettest April on record from what I'm hearing. So I got to believe your perspective has changed on more than just a few things. I got some questions for you about bugs, but you first. What is your assessment of our corn and soybean crops as late as we are here going into Memorial Day weekend?
Well, that's a great question, Rob. It's definitely been a game changer since the last time you and I talked. I should be a weatherman because all you got to do is put 50-50 in the forecast and you're right.
I hope you don't do that with your recommendations to the farmers.
No, that's what I'm saying. If we did that in our profession, we'd get fired.
Right away. So we are so late, but again, you get a chance to look at a lot of fields, and it sounds like you're out in one right at the moment with the wind blowing. What is your assessment, as late as we are, with the stuff that you are seeing and the ground finally getting mildly fit to work?
Ground conditions have finally come around. There is a certain number of people that actually are wrapping up or nearly wrapped up. It's kind of pockets, but for the most part, the biggest chunk of the region is just getting a good start here. So we have a lot of progress to make, and we got a lot of rain in the forecast. So who knows what's going to happen. But I would argue we do still have time. I never get too nervous as long as we can plant in the month of May. We can raise a really good crop yet as long as it's put in this month. I don't usually get too ouchy till we start turning the calendar to June.
Yeah. Given the wet weather this spring, boy, it's been really difficult to find the perfect weather window to do an effective job of weed control. What's your assessment of that?
Weed control has definitely been a struggle. I mean, if we haven't had one call, it's been 101 calls about how do I kill foot-tall giant ragweed or how do I kill 2-foot-tall giant ragweed? And what should I do with this and what should I do with that? I mean, that's just what wet weather does to you. So you just got to manage it. But there are options. There's good options that work, and you just got to find the right answers and ask the right people. But we're getting ahead of it. We're making good progress here in the last few days, so I feel better about things. I know the forecast has some wet ones in there, but we just got to be hopeful we miss them.
Yeah. What about bugs? You've talked about things that will blow up to us from down south, as soon as we get any kind of big storm system. You talked about bugs come to town on those storm systems as they push up. And I heard recently that our neighbors to the west over in Illinois have seen an uptick in black cutworm trap catches. I know you're focusing on planting at the moment, but have you had any traps out, or what are you seeing with regard to bug pressure?
Well, cutworm is something that does get carried up on southerly wind fronts. So any kind of storms that blow in from the south, which we've had several, they will carry black cutworm moths with them. They'll also carry armyworm moths. So hopefully anybody that's raising wheat has already got insecticide on your crop, because I anticipate a pretty heavy armyworm pressure in wheat if it wasn't treated. But black cutworm could be an issue. The thing of it is, we're so late in our planting that corn is either just getting planted or it's just coming out of the ground, or it's not of really substantial size. So it's hard to say exactly if cutworm is a problem yet. But I will say, there's a lot of cover crops. There's a lot of weedy fields. Those things harbor cutworms. So if you plant it into a weedier field or a cover crop field, and if you're planting corn that's not traded for cutworm, you might consider adding an insecticide to your burn down or your corn herbicide just to protect you, because I anticipate some potential issues there.
Speaking of issues that you're anticipating, as you look at the calendar, look at the fields and, how we got here and all the moisture that we got in April, what are the kinds of things that are, in the back of your brain and you're thinking to yourself, this might not turn out so well. I'm going to keep an eye on that. What's on that list?
To be honest with you, one of the things of concern is we're late in the calendar. When you get late, you tend to get nervous. And when you get nervous, you push. And you push fields and you push conditions. And there's been a fair amount of stuff that I would probably argue wasn't really put in right. And if we have a dry, hot finish to our summer like they're predicting us to have, we could have some issues with the crop down the stretch. So I worry about that a little bit. So I can't stress enough about making sure things are fit to plant, wait an extra 12 or 24 hours. I mean, I know that's really hard to do on the 20th of May or whatever the date we're at here. But I think being fit is a big deal, because if Mother Nature dries up on us this summer like they're saying it will, it could get ugly.
And we get late in the season like this. I was talking with Bob Nielsen, a retired corn expert at Purdue University, and one of the points that he made was, yeah, we're a little bit late, but, if we would have planted earlier, to your point about the field being fit, the soil temperatures were a lot cooler then. We get something in the ground now, and because the soil temperatures have warmed up significantly, that stuff really going to probably emerge fairly quickly.
That's a huge advantage. That's why I'm not nervous about planting through the month of May. And I know natural farmer reaction is to feel ouchy about being late, but you know what? These soil temps are 80 degrees or higher, and I'm telling you, corn will blow out of the ground in 5 or 6 days, sometimes less in conditions like that. And if you get corn to fire off that quick, you have a really good head start. I've seen corn planted May 25th catch corn that was planted May 1. So it's not really a bad situation at all. We haven't really lost a lot of potential, in my opinion, but it goes back to putting things in right. I just think it's being smart about decisions is important.
Good advice. Greg Kneubuhler, G&K Concepts, really appreciating your videos on YouTube, and encourage everybody to go visit there. Just go on YouTube and search for G&K Concepts, and all the latest will pop right up there. So, Greg, thanks a bunch for your time. Great advice. Take your time and make sure you're putting it in right, not necessarily quickly. Greg, thanks for your time. As usual, appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for the plug, and we'll talk to you all later.
Podcasts by Federated Media.